you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this listening session. I'm Jaylee Schultz, Deputy Executive Director for the State Board of Education. We're excited to hear your thoughts on what students need to be ready for life after high school. The input you share today will help shape the board's work to update graduation requirements. Before we dive in, let's go over a few housekeeping items. The focus of this session is to hear from you all. We will briefly cover some background information and then turn our attention to discussion questions. We'll be using a combination of whole group discussion, breakout rooms for small group discussion, and on-screen polls. This will include Zoom polls, Padlet for note-taking, and a Menti word cloud. If those tools are unfamiliar to you, no worries, we'll provide instructions along the way. If you run into any technical difficulties, please use the chat feature to ask for help and we'll do our best to assist you. During the discussion, we would love for participants to come off mute to speak, and you can also use the chat feature to share your thoughts and questions. The slide deck and a recording of this session will be shared with all registrants afterwards. We will be recording the entire session, including the small group discussions, to make sure we capture your thoughts. Now, this is the State Board staff team who are helping facilitate today's listening session. Colton is helping run the Zoom for us, and then one staff person each will be in each of the breakout rooms to help facilitate the discussion and take notes. Before we dive in, I'd like to share a little bit of information with you about the State Board of Education. We're a 16-member policy board supported by a small staff of 12. Our members bring a wide range of perspectives and include 2 student members who provide critical insights from the learner's perspective, the superintendent of public instruction, a representative of private schools, 5 members elected by school board directors from across the state, and 7 members appointed by the governor. As a policy board, our primary role is to shape policies and advocate for the state's K-12 public education system. Our mission is to cultivate an equitable and inclusive K-12 education system that fulfills our vision of every student being empowered with the knowledge and skills they need to thrive in a rapidly changing world. This mission guides all of our work, from collaborating with partners to developing policy to advocating for transformative change. In addition to the board's broad advocacy and oversight role, we also focus on specific policy areas, with one of the most notable being graduation requirements. The FutureReady initiative sits squarely within the board's statutory authority. Under state law, we are responsible for establishing graduation requirements, periodically reevaluating them, and proposing changes to the state legislature. This process of review and improvement is a regular part of the board's duties and helps ensure that graduation requirements remain relevant, equitable, and aligned with the needs of Washington students and communities. When we talk about graduation requirements, we are referring to all 3 components of the state's graduation requirements framework. The High School and Beyond Plan is the planning tool that helps students identify interests, set goals, and choose courses and activities. We also have the credit and subject area requirements, and then the graduation pathway option, different ways for students to show readiness for their individual education and career goals for after high school. These 3 components are intended to work together to signal that a student is ready for success in post-secondary education, gainful employment, civic engagement, and lifelong learning. Before we go any further, it's important to emphasize that the board is not proposing any changes to graduation requirements at this time. Instead, the board has launched the process for doing the review and for developing recommendations. The board is in the early stage of this process and aims to engage authentically with partners in developing the proposal. So we're starting with the issues and questions to explore rather than beginning with predetermined changes in mind. This initiative is multi-year, leading to the development of a comprehensive legislative proposal for the 27 legislative session. Importantly, any changes that come out of this work will be phased in to support thoughtful and effective implementation. We are currently at the front end of this process in phase 1, where we are starting off by developing a shared vision for what the diploma should signify in terms of readiness for success. This shared vision will lay the foundation for the more detailed policy work to come. If you'd like to learn more or stay involved in the Future Ready initiative, we'd encourage you to check out the links on this slide to access handouts, sign up for updates, fill out the interest form, which will help tailor future engagement opportunities. There's also a recording of an informational webinar that goes into more detail about the approach to the initiative. All right, so thank you for bearing with us as we set the stage for today's listening session. Before we launch into discussion, we'd like to take a moment to learn more about all of you joining us today. This helps us understand who's in the room, where you're coming from, and what perspectives you bring to this conversation. We're going to launch a few quick polls, which you'll see pop up on your screen. While we're running the polls, we'd also encourage you to introduce yourself in chat. If you'd like, feel free to share why you're interested in Future Ready. We'd love to hear what brought you here today. And then once the polls close in a moment, we'll share the results on screen for all to see. Thank you. Okay. So it looks like for roles of our participants joining us here today, we've got a couple students. Thank you so much for joining. Parents, guardians, and family. Lots of school personnel. Thank you for taking time on your lunch, community-based orgs, state agency partners, and some business partners as well. Thank you so much for being here today. For race ethnicity breakdown, the largest proportion are identify as white, and some for 16% Black or African American. This helps us see where to do more outreach as well. So thank you so much for answering that question. And likewise for region, we have a biggest proportion coming from Puget Sound area. Also some representation from the Southwest, Northwest, and Eastern Washington, so across the state. Thank you so much. And as far as familiarity, how much folks have heard about Future Ready, the largest proportion at 55% say they've heard of it, but don't know much about the details. We have some folks who are very familiar, about a third, and then 15% saying it's their first time hearing about it. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing and introducing yourself. All right. So now we're going to just about ready to launch into our discussion here. We're going to just do a little bit more stage setting to dive into the topic around our vision for the high school diploma. So first of all, according to state law, the purpose of a high school diploma is to declare that a student is ready for success in post-secondary education, gainful employment, civic engagement, and is equipped with skills to be a lifelong learner. So while that foundation is set in state law, what it means to be ready for success is something that we want to unpack further as we develop our shared vision for this initiative. So as we know, success can mean different things to different people and communities, and what it means to be ready for success can vary depending on students' unique experiences, goals, and the available opportunities. So before we can determine how graduation requirements should change, we need to first clarify our shared vision of what the diploma should signify. So now we would like to dive into the discussion, and the majority of the rest of the time is going to be spent on hearing from you all. We're going to dive into breakout rooms to have smaller groups discussing. And this is where we will launch the Padlets as well. So you're encouraged, if you're able to click on the links in chat to access the Padlet, or you can use this QR code by taking a photo or using your phone camera to access the link using the QR code. We also, staff can assist. So if for any reason you're not able to access the Padlet, the staff will be able to take notes and put those into the Padlet for you. And the small groups will see each other's work in the Padlet as well. So you can also look at what other folks are saying, and you're able to interact with their comments. You can heart a comment if you like it, and you can add a comment or a question to other thoughts as well. So we want to start off with the first segment around defining success. The question for this is describe what you believe are the qualities of a successful life. So we're going to start really big picture and dive into the qualities of a successful life. And then from there, we're going to dive in more specifically to our hopes and aspirations for students after high school. And specifically, what do you hope they know and can do as they step into the next stage of life? And what do you hope they feel confident about? So now we will break into small groups for about 8 minutes or so. You'll get some time warnings when it's time to return back to the main group.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Ariel Matthews, and I'm with the board. So, um, just wanting to check in. Is everybody able to access the Padlet? All right, great. So we are working on that first tab, the one that says qualities of a successful life. And so I want to give you a minute or two to add your thoughts to that, and also discuss amongst each other what you're putting in there. And I'll also be able to capture thoughts as you all are discussing as well. We really just want to hear what is your thinking on this? What are your feelings behind it? And yes, I put the link again into the chat. Hopefully you should be able to see that. Awesome.
I'm assuming we can chat, we can talk as
Oh,
well.
yes, please
I'll
do
just
talk.
share on Friday, I was in a classroom, a high school classroom of mostly 10th graders, and the teacher was running a circle, and the question was like, what is success, a successful life look like to you? Exactly that. And it was the students were answering about being happy, about being surrounded by family and having time to be able to spend time with family. Um, those were like the two like themes that just, we didn't dig into like, okay, what does happy look like? But it just them seeing like just wanting to enjoy. But family and friends was that was probably the biggest one of that surfaced from those students. And that was about 20 students that answered that question.
Are we only doing the first column right now?
We knew it would get a little messy. We wanted to kind of start column by column because the first one is a little more big picture of
Okay.
what does success look like, since that's the wording that is in statute, and then moving into thinking a little more specifically around what should students know and what should they be able to do once they graduate, and what should they feel confident about as they graduate. But happy to move around those as makes sense for you all to be able to discuss.
I was just going to comment, I'm a retired superintendent, that part of success is not just success once they leave high school, but their K-12 experience, and in particular their middle school, high school experience is successful. And that I think is key. And then this is my personal opinion, I think students need to feel they belong. And in many of our school districts, they don't, whatever the issue is. Whether it's race or income or gender or whatever it is, I just think it's critical that the state board looks at through a lens of, because in order to be successful after high school, hopefully students have success in high school with their K-12 experience.
Jim, are you going to put in belonging as qualities of a successful life, or shall someone else?
If somebody else can, I'm juggling two different.
I'll put it in.
Yeah, I'm typing in a few things as well from you all. You might see me as the courageous lion.
Thank you. And Kim, thank you too. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, I think it's a fundamental concept. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
You're my best friend now.
This is Cheryl Lynn Crowther. I have a lens of working with students in special education and their families. And so success needs to include life skills, depending on, and actually that varies. That's even for the kid who's got the 504 accommodations in high school and is able to then, if they are going to college, to ask for those accommodations and perhaps even to advocate for themselves in the workplace in terms of accommodations. Understanding that the neurodiversity of our population is an enrichment, not a negative.
Jim, see if I captured it for you. Column 1.
Yeah, Peggy, go ahead. Feel free to
Yeah,
just jump
sorry,
in, anybody.
yeah, I came into this late, so I kind of missed what was going on, but it sounds to me like you're coming up with a list of things that make people future ready, right?
Yeah. So we're really discussing what are the qualities of a successful life, since in statute is that students are walking away from high school ready for success in a few different spaces. So what does that mean to you all for students? And what should they be leaving high school knowing what to do and how to do it and what they should be feeling confident about is what we're trying to get out of this
Okay.
section.
So we can just volunteer ideas.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. I think a focus on executive function, the ability to plan ahead and, create a path for yourself to accomplish what you set out to do.
That's a great comment from Peggy, and also Cheryl, and your comment about special needs kids or 504 kids are really good. The other thing I think that, and it's hard to quantify this, and it's hard to measure it, but higher level thinking skills. This is my opinion only. I worry about with some of our political stuff going on that some folks they're not applying higher level thinking skills to real life events happening in our society. And I think it's hard to measure that. There's no real, that's where a teacher comes in. You can't, standardized test isn't necessarily going to measure that. But I just think it's important for a successful society to have citizens that employ higher level thinking skills. If they're reading an editorial, if they're reading a blog, if they're having a discussion with relatives, whatever it is, that I think that's really important. And Kim, I'll add that I figured out how to do the Padlet. Thank you.
Yeah, Peggy, go ahead.
So when you come to the higher order thinking skills, my background is in math. And what I discover is that there seems to be not enough emphasis put on the foundational skills, the lower level skills that allow kids to have the flexibility to actually engage in higher level thinking. And so that is a concern of mine when there's too much focus on higher level thinking skills, that you may overlook the necessary drudgery, for lack of a better word, of internalizing foundational ideas such as just basic arithmetic.
Adding to what you just said, Peggy, this is Kim. I sort of co-teach in the 9th grade algebra classroom, and these kids many of them are lacking 3rd grade skills and 4th grade skills. It's really quite shocking. And I do think you have to have, at least in math and probably everything else, you have to have the basics mastered. to be able to get on with higher level thinking. And that's the big thing with algebra for me, is that's your first step into conceptual thinking, and hence why I put my effort there.
Yeah, agree with that. If I may, we actually ended up pulling our two older kids out of the public school system because we didn't feel like they were getting what they needed along the lines of higher order thinking skills, being able to go out and satisfy their curiosity and learn more, and to make connections between things. One of the activities that our youngest son was involved in was policy debate, and that was one of the most enriching and useful opportunities I think I ever saw one of our kids engage in. I would recommend it for at least as an extracurricular activity in schools, because you're pulling together information, you're doing research, and then you're having to take and piece it together and create a plan and that you have to defend. And to me, it was one of the best activities I've ever seen. Our youngest son, actually, he's in law school right now. He was able to challenge his way out of all of the English composition courses in college because his writing skills had achieved that level before he got there. So I'm just putting that out there as a possibility for, enrichment. Not a requirement, but an option for enrichment.
This is Sherilyn. I also say I will add that I put in civics knowledge and engagement. I don't know if anybody else thinks this, but if you don't know a lot about how democracy works, democracies can fall.
It told me I was muted now. My apologies. To what many of you have been saying here, I think it'll be important to capture that in the kind of in those two hopes and aspirations columns. A part of what this work is intending to do is that it is, yes, high school graduation requirements. We also fully recognize that there is a buildup before a student gets to high school, and that part of this in our implementation may require some backwards planning, and that we know there are skills that will need to be, scaffolded up to when they get to high school to do some of those higher order things. So getting those thoughts about what a student needs in order to get to those higher level skills, if you believe that that is what is important for them to be walking away from high school with, will be important to be able to capture in that space, if you all want to make a few notes in there about that. Yeah, Peggy?
Yeah, so along those lines, what's the plan for remediation in case they aren't there when they get there? I mean, is there just a question?
Yes, and certainly one I do not have an answer to in this particular moment, but I would ask perhaps, or if you want me to, I can add that into the other thoughts just to ensure that that's something we're thinking about as we plan these. Would you like me to add that in there for you?
Yes, please.
I'd like to chime in again about media literacy. I'm Marilyn Cohen, and I represent the Action for Media Education, which is a Washington-based nonprofit promoting media literacy education. I also am in the Center for Media Literacy at the UW. And I think that AI literacy and media literacy cross over into all the different areas here, because AI is gradually changing the world in which students live. And I think it's really important that they learn the critical thinking skills that are going to be so important to navigate all the minefield of information out there. We are living in the information age where we're swimming in information, and yet I've heard it said that we have never been more uninformed. It's really hard to navigate the disinformation and misinformation out there. And this is going to be critical for our democracy and for the students as future citizens. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of AI literacy and media literacy for students as they graduate high school and go on to whatever careers they're going to be involved in. Thank you.
So I would endorse both of those, financial literacy and media literacy. The one thing I guess I would be my overriding concern is for anything that you feel that needs to be added to graduation requirements, that you also think hard about what can be taken away. So that we're not just simply overstuffing the curriculum, but keeping it still focused on the things we think most essential.
As someone who went to high school in the last 10 years, I do want to state that we are taught like literacy in English class and stuff. I think a lot of context is missing for students. So I did a special program in high school called IB, where International Baccalaureate, where we would take a class before school called Theory of Knowledge, and we were given context for the things that we were learning. So we taught like, why do people need to learn history? Why do people need to learn English? And that gave me a lot of context. And so I'm able to use the media literacy I was taught in English class and the scientific method for analyzing different evidence in science class, and like coupled together, I feel very literate now. So I do want to say, like, I think the public education system does need some sort of contextualizing class that teaches students, like, why do we even want to learn these things? Why is it important for humans to learn history and stuff? And then, so that was just kind of my thoughts on that. And then last thought, I also feel like we're not encouraging civic engagement enough in high school. Like teaching in Washington State, you can register to vote at 16, which is about your sophomore, junior year. And I think we should really be encouraging students. We don't have to tell them who to vote for, right? That's very much their business, but how to vote, how to get your ballot, how to print it, how to register to vote, and where you can vote, and encourage their family members as well. But yeah, I know the breakout rooms are closing, so.
No, thank you all so much. And as we head back into the main room, they're going to want to hear some thoughts from each group. So if any of you are willing to share out from our conversation here, or if you had a thought that you didn't get to say, you'll have an opportunity when we return to the whole group as well. Thank you all.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, we've been able to hear each other. I think you just couldn't hear us. So
crazy. Thank you so much. I apologize. So not for sure what happened. But looking at the notes here and other thoughts. So what did we think like our biggest takeaway is? Because we'll need to share out when we get back into our larger group. And so what were our biggest takeaways from looking at this moment to connect?
I would like to comment. I don't know how to raise my hand on this darn thing. So I don't know how to step on people. Anyhow, I think that Vicky's, I can't pronounce her last name, I'm not going to butcher it. I don't think people understand that the skills that are needed by students are not necessarily college prep. And I don't think there's a wide enough understanding that fundamentally employers, I've got a lot of experience there, want people that can think, understand their capabilities, their cognitive abilities, and their weaknesses. And I just don't think that the number of courses or the things that we typically want are what most employers want to pay for. Now, there are certain things that certainly they need to have, but most of them it is not. And a shout out to our state superintendent, who has tried to make it as flexible and easy to get a diploma as one could hope. Thank you.
John, this is Nick Massey. I want to speak to that a little bit. Monica Stonier from Southwest Washington put Pathways in Careers as a bill a few years ago, and we've gained great benefits from that. Here down in Southwest Washington, we've banded together with industry and the schools, and created some things. We have what we call Core Plus curriculum from OSPI that we're doing inside of there. We're also doing Skills USA. But 30%, most of our school districts down here, about 30% of the kids go to college. And the differentiation, Camas and Ridgefield maybe have 85%, but the rest of the areas, there's only 30%. And so what we've got together is say we need to have, we call it grade 13, that we prepare these students for whatever career they want to go to, even if it's college, but to have the skills and abilities to do that. And I'm very excited to see this coming out from everybody else so we can have that view expressed.
Nick, could you please elaborate on grade 13? I didn't understand that.
Grade 13, well, grade 13 right now is we go to the CTEs, Career and Technical Education, from 14 high schools. And our grade 13 event is what we call it right now is what are they doing when they graduate from high school, John? Do they have a job they're going to? Are they going to go to the apprenticeship? Are they going to go to college? We feel that we need to give them anything that they want to do to go on there. What we're doing through our committees is we're creating the grade 13 event is the top 3 to 6 students from each high school from the CTE, which is Career and Technical Education. We feed them lunch, and then we have a career fair, a hiring fair there from all the employers in the area that they can use the skills that they've learned in the Career and Technical Education classes to get a job. So that's what we're doing right now with the grade 13.
What do you do with the ones that are not the top percentage there?
Question. I was gonna ask that.
And so those at the same time with other events we're doing. So we start out at the beginning of the year with what's called Dozer Days, and we had 1,200 kids in that. And so they came in. We let them run the equipment through Dozer Days, and then we were able to visit with them. That was from 9 to 12, the 12th grade. Then we had a second event in just a couple of weeks ago, and it was called the Young Contractors Forum that had 450 kids show up to learn about the construction trades. Those kids are getting a black book that they can go visit with people about getting into the construction industry. What we're trying to do is to create some competition to get into that one, the 3 to 6 for the kids to see that.
Right. May I just jump in? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just have the 1-minute warning before we're going to be coming back. Would anyone else like to share anything? And then do I have a volunteer for sharing out what I couldn't hear? I missed a lot of it because I couldn't hear you. Do we have a volunteer that's able to do that? And if not, I can sum up from the board if you want that.
We didn't discuss a lot when you couldn't hear us because we were trying to get your attention. So
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I would just reiterate exposure to as many jobs as possible. And although those dozer opportunities are cool, it doesn't encompass all the avenues. And when.
Or before. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to share screen. Great. So this session is for us to just really define what success means. And so these are a couple of questions that we have for you, but mainly it's going to be just a discussion between all of us of what should be some of the qualities of a successful life. As you all share your thoughts, I'm just going to go ahead and be writing down notes, and you're going to be able to see the notes being reflected here. In the event that I am misinterpreting something, please go ahead and feel free to just let me know right away so that way I can go ahead and make sure that I write down your thoughts properly. With that, would anyone like to begin?
I can go ahead and start. So I'm Mary Powers and I work for Career Connect Northwest. So I work with a lot of high schoolers and middle schools around like picking what career they're interested in. And I think one thing they mention a lot is like they want to be able to do, to have a career they enjoy, but also support themselves at the same time. You know, they worry about money, but they want to do something they like as well. So I think it's already written on there in finances. But yeah, I think the quality of a successful life, to find a career you can enjoy, can actually support yourself doing that.
Perfect. And feel free to for anyone else to jump in and add or contribute to that conversation. I'm also gonna have to minimize my screen, so I'm not gonna be seeing faces. So please let me know. Just feel free to shout.
I can go next. So in addition to having the financial stability to help fund your lifestyle, having a home or a family and such, but also having a career that gives you time and space to have rest and the ability to engage with hobbies and just experience life.
Perfect. Anyone else? What do you think could be the hopes and aspirations of students, and what can they know and can do to do this?
So I would say having, I'm just gonna say it, probably at least 10th grade literacy and numeracy skills.
And one of the things that I'm gonna do is, if it makes it easier for discussion, I'm going to go ahead and send it to our chat. Give me a second. Oh, shoot. Sorry. That should. Perfect. Anything else? Anyone?
Yeah, I would hope that they come out of high school with some hard skills that can serve them across all 8 career clusters as a graduation requirement. So, some type of technology literacy, as well as experience in some arts, uh, introductory things that help them understand what they may or may not like, even though at the time they didn't think they would like it. But those hard skills are important, I think, in every career cluster as far as typing goes and uh, basic technology literacy, in addition to reading literacy. And I'm a staunch proponent also of financial fitness. So I really believe that students need to come out of high school understanding basic finances, or if they don't, it doesn't really matter what else they know because the rest of it gets mismanaged.
Yeah, and again, at this time, it's important to notice that the state board is not doing any recommendations
Right.
for what the
Nope, just
requirements should be. But yes, those are a lot of the things that we have actually been hearing very often over the last few months.
For me, I work with high schoolers just as a homeroom teacher, and I noticed that a real lack of what careers exist out there. They just, all they're familiar with are YouTubers and TikTok influencers. And so what I want them to know is what exists as jobs, and if we could find a way to expose them to more opportunities.
Yes, hands-on opportunities.
Like connected to that is also the connection between school and the careers that they might want to have later. Um, I was in a conference last week and I heard something that students mentally check out in third grade because they stop seeing the relevance of school to, having a career in a life after high school.
Would could you tell me a little more about that in terms of are you seeing more of like a disconnection between higher ed and K through 12, or more of a partnership collaboration type of like to ensure that there's a smooth process after high school to enter the post-work, post-ed?
Yeah, I don't think it's as necessarily relevant to higher ed connections. It's more what are we doing in schools that are helping them prepare, and how do we make that connection for them when they're in classrooms? So whether that's an English class or, and those communication skills are so important in getting a job, or it's a welding class and they need that skill to go get a job in the trades. But I think there we lose some students because they don't realize that what they're doing is going to help them later on. They don't see that connection.
Piggybacking on that a little bit, something that may help is expanding out into the community and building those community relationships, like English teachers partnering with groups in the community and writing letters and just getting involved with their local situations. I think that's really lacking in our schools.
For the purpose of providing more resources to students?
Right, and knowing how school connects to what they do outside of school.
Agree with that. I'm a strong proponent of the sooner they can have job shadows, the better. The sooner they can be involved in a job shadow or a job experience of some kind that is a failure, the sooner they can check that aspiration off their list. I had so many students who wanted to be nurses or doctors and went on some type of job shadow or even went to donate their blood and passed out and decided that maybe wasn't going to be a good career for them. Not that they couldn't find a way to get over that, but I'm a big fan of failing forward. So the more exposure they can have to different types of jobs and different types of trades and different types of skills, the better prepared I think they are to say, yeah, I tried that and that really wasn't for me. But in doing that, I saw this and decided I would like that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense also. Um, Following to this, I would love to hear more of like what do you think they would feel confident about? So these are what hope yeah, what do you hope they feel confident about?
Confident to fail and know it's not the end of the world.
Yes, in my classroom, fail was first attempt in learning. So it was a prerequisite. Everyone that the first thing they did for me was usually designed to make them fail. So that they just got that out right out of the gate. And but they understood that it wasn't a negative connotation if they failed, because it allowed us an opportunity to teach them how to get back up and how to ask relevant questions as to why they failed or what were the processes that didn't happen that could have been in place that would have prevented them from failing. Those are life skills I think that get overlooked for lack of a better word, number skills that don't serve them until they've learned those first how to fail and then how to grow.
Yeah.
Well, I think communication and strong communication and collaboration skills.
Yes. I know so many teachers who give up on the team or project, right? Because there's this lack of wanting to grade it collectively or worried about someone else, carrying the weight or whatever. But that is such a strong thing, collaboration and communication. They have to know that there's no islands out there.
And I think even just trying to get a job, you need to learn how to communicate and network. And so I think the soft skills are things that they really need, like, yeah, being okay with failure, being able to communicate. Also, just that curiosity and learning how to problem solve, right? That if they don't know how to do something, is figuring out on their own, and kind of increasing their self-efficacy.
I love that. Anything else? And we'll be automatically kicked out of this room, so everyone's gonna go back.
Critical thinking skills, strong critical thinking skills.
I think we need to do a better job at articulating that to students. What does critical thinking skills break down to?
Analyzing and evaluating, synthesizing information.
Yep.
Problem solving.
Yep. And sometimes memorization is a foundation of those.
Thank you, everyone, for coming back together now. We were hoping to say you have another opportunity here as well. So is anyone willing to share from your discussion?
I'd be glad to, but I don't know how to raise my hand.
Go ahead. Great to just chime in. No problem at all. Thank you.
Our group had we didn't have a lot of people contributing because a couple of us talked way too much and asked too many questions. Our emphasis, I think, was that employers want diversity in competencies, and that we should not focus on just college, but that we need to look at the broader aspects of what employers are looking for, because the real fact is we're not preparing students to go to school more. We're preparing them to jump off and do what they want to do. And majority of them do not go to a four-year college. They do not use linear algebra in anything. In fact, most board members have not used a equation in the last half year. So our emphasis was, and one of the members had a wonderful discussion and shared with us all, how their district is really integrating CTE into channeling kids to get jobs. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts?
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You are our leader. You do it, girl.
You actually, I believe you were in my
Yes.
So go ahead, take it over. I was just gonna be pushing you all.
I was just gonna say we were in room 1, and I think that out of all the things we articulated, we agreed with John. We were articulating more basic facts and type things. We believe that they need hard skills that serve them in not only in college, but in the trades. We believe that they need confidence, learning how to fail, and first attempt in learning. They need collaboration and communication skills. All of those things, when John says we need to know what employers want, that's what they want. They need students, they need employees that can think critically. That was talked about. And talking about, we all kind of know these buzzwords in this group: communication, collaboration, technology skills, things like that. But we need to really be able to break it down to students so they understand the importance of it and the relevance of it. Someone in our group said that there's a study somewhere that kids check out after 3rd grade because they just can't get the relevance of what they're learning. And I would say that would be myself for math until I got into an Excel spreadsheet, and then it was a game changer. So just those types of breaking that down into the minutia of what is an employer looking for and how do we get students those skills, which also translate into life skills for them in the future.
Can I add to what Catherine said?
Sure.
The fundamental issue, I think, in the 3rd and 4th grade is that the cognitive abilities of most students are not what we're asking them to learn. If you look at the cognitive abilities and competencies, they aren't there. So they get frustrated. They are not going to succeed. They constantly see themselves as failures because innately no child sees failure as a problem until they get to school. A kid falls over, he gets up and he walks again. And he crawls and he grabs for things mom doesn't want him to grab for. So I think we're missing the boat because we're not addressing their interests, because kids will learn without a teacher if they're given an opportunity, almost regardless of what it is. Thank you.
I'll jump in and I'll concur with what John just said. What we've done in Southwest Washington now is, just like Catherine said about math in the Excel spreadsheet, we've created a construction math. And so they're learning about the Pythagorean theorem while laying out a foundation. And so it's not this obtuse thing about all the things. Some people need that geometry on the cute and the triangles and everything else, but everybody asks me when they come into industry, what does geometry and algebra help me with? And well, for geometry, we can answer them. You need to lay out a translation, or lay out a foundation. You need to do stair stringers. All that stuff falls into that. So that's what we're trying to do, is to have the two ways of looking at math. We all use it, but we just use it in different ways.
Thank you. And let's take one more comment from Natalia before moving on to the next set of questions.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Great. I just wanted to mention that I think some of the qualities that I saw people listing for a successful life in my group had a lot to do with health, the ability to have good relationships with other people, and the ability to participate in your community, and also to support yourself at a reasonable standard of living, so you're not having to worry about things like food or having a roof over your head or clothing, and you can have a family life on those wages. So there's a number of different criteria beyond just math, and those kinds of specific skills that people have been talking about till now, but also just knowing about yourself, feeling confident in your own culture and who you are. Those are some of the themes that came through.
Awesome, thank you. Well, let's move on to our next set of questions here. And this is intended to dive deeper into what it means to be ready. So we just talked about what do we mean by success, and it sounds like a lot of your conversations already kind of headed in this direction around what knowledge, skills, and experiences do students need for success. And we're breaking this into different components. These align with the purpose of the diploma. So we wanted to ask this question in thinking about specifically what students need for success in terms of their ability to pursue post-secondary education beyond high school. And that would be inclusive of apprenticeships, trade schools, community college, four-year college, all post-secondary education options is what we mean when we say that. We also want to ask about their readiness to secure meaningful work, their role in participation in their community, and their ability to continue growing and learning throughout life. So we have another Padlet set up to gather your thoughts here, and we would ask you to enter them. If you find that you've already thoroughly discussed this, you're also welcome to return back to the previous Padlet if you want to dig deeper into but what do we mean by success? So we're also, you're welcome to keep adding to both of the Padlets, but at this point in time, we're going to launch the small breakout rooms again to dig deeper into each one of these, and then we'll come back together as a whole group again. All right, we can launch those groups.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't realize I was muted. Just wanted to double check that you all are in the new Padlet. It should be yellow.
Would you mind posting that link in the chat? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so with this one, we're hoping to get a little more specificity around what each of these different components of the of graduation means for you, for your students, and in how students are being prepared to be ready for all of these different aspects of their life. So looking forward to hearing what you all have to say on that.
Are we going to spend a certain amount of time writing in the Padlet and then talking about it, or what's the breakdown?
Yeah, if that feels more comfortable to you all, give a minute or two for you all to jot down some things in the Padlet, and then feel free to start discussing amongst each other to help bubble up more thoughts. Just checking in to see if anyone would like to share what they started jotting down.
I wrote writing skills for the first bucket. So I'm a first year instructor at the University of Washington, specifically in a program for men of color. And I find that those many come in with strong writing skills, but those who struggle with writing really struggle with writing, and sometimes are investing a lot of their time and energy to catch up with writing. And I think over the years, I've seen more and more come in struggle with writing. So I think an important skill that students need to pursue education beyond high school are those strong, confident writing skills.
I'm seeing one of the other comments in here. Some of the wording in this is around securing meaningful work. I'm curious what your thoughts are on what meaningful work looks like.
Yeah, I was just about to, I haven't read through the comments, but I think, let's see, what I just jotted down was a community that understands that everyone has unique gifts and a place in contributing to something larger, to understand what has meaning and purpose for them. So I guess I think what I'm getting at is when you have meaning and purpose, that drives your learning. And so I think anyone can accomplish anything that they set out to do if they are driven by that meaning and purpose in life. And I think that's sometimes one of the most important things that we forget about. We go right to the academics, but without that underlying meaning and purpose, I think we have nothing that drives us. That's why kids are lost in like, what is this all for?
I agree with that, the academic piece, we only have 15 seconds, but one of them says, what does this mean in an emerging place where you have 8 to 9 more careers? It's a different world. And so exposure and experience will, if you have purpose, it drives that.
Hello, everyone. I'll put the link to the Padlet in chat. Okay, encourage you to add your thoughts there, and I will pull it up on screen in a moment as well. If you need me to enter any ideas, just let me know. And after you've taken a moment to add your thoughts, we'll chat about it as well.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
For the first prompt, what students need to be ready to pursue education beyond high school? Are you guys thinking 4-year university, 2-year technical school, community college? What are you thinking there?
All different types of
Oh
post-secondary
boy,
education
there's the
options.
counselor in the room. How about trades and going into the jobs instead of a 4-year or 2-year college?
You caught me.
I know we're trying to change that narrative a little bit. So I appreciate you listening.
You know, Nick, what you said reminds me, I'm a retired school superintendent, and I, went through undergraduate, bachelor's, and got a master's. But my father-in-law was a lineman, and he dropped out of 2 universities, but he finished lineman school. After he retired, he they replaced their lake cabin. He wrote a check because of the stock market was well, and he had gotten a stock matching program through Avista. I don't know how many school superintendents, which I used to be, could write a check. I couldn't for my lake cabin to be redone. And I told him, I said, you passed lineman school, but he still felt bad even before he died about not getting a degree. And I think that's a wrong message we send to kids. Education after high school, yes, but that education could be lineman school, could be culinary school. It could be a 2-year or 4-year. It could be military. It could be whatever they choose it to be. But I don't know. I just feel so passionate about that, and I appreciate your comments. I'll try to put that down in the Padlet, but that's probably too much to write. But thank you for sharing that, because I think that's really important. You don't have to go to a 4-year degree to be a success. But you do need some type of training after high school.
So at La Center High School, we've been trying to get the pathways to graduation there, and 2 years or 3 years ago, all the college seniors from football said they were going to college or a future secondary school, and then last year they said 2 of them were going to college and 4 of them were going to apprenticeship programs. So yeah, we have to remove that stigma of going into the trades. It's a I know this young man that at 17, he started in the apprenticeship program. At 19 years old, he's making $39 an hour, and he's on his way to, he's a journeyman plumber. I mean, I don't know any college graduate at that age is able to claim that. So it needs to be both ways.
Sorry, I just want to chime in here because this is a huge discussion we always have. And I just want to emphasize I agree with you guys. I also feel that both are important to have. Like people who go into the army should get a 4-year degree, linemen should get a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree. Like, we're all one broken back away from being laid off. There are folks whose bodies, like coming from a household where my father worked construction all his life, he had to retire around 45 because he went blind in his left eye. And now he has to re-credential himself. I feel that we should set up our students for success by having both options. And Washington State, we're really lucky to have the college grant, which pays for both 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees, and also apprenticeships. So if we can encourage I would say we should encourage our folks who go into apprenticeships and linemen to also consider that in the future and take away. I think the biggest thing is taking away the stigma into non-traditional students. If you end up working as a lineman all of your 20s and then you want to pivot later in your life, we should take away the stigma to come back to school, right? Go get your 2-year degree afterwards and 4-year degree. But we should let students know. I think after this ramble, I just believe we should let students know of all of their pathways, right? Whether it's the trades or 2-year or 4-year, we should encourage them to explore every single pathway and also become lifelong learners. Like if you change your mind and you don't want to work in a corporate office in your mid-20s, go back and get that certification for electrician or whatever other career you're interested in. So I just think teaching them the flexibility and that life sucks, the economy is going to go up and down. You should always be open to learning new skills and new things, and not being ashamed of going back.
And Nancy, I must say that all the apprenticeship programs, electrical and plumbing, have that equivalency. They have to take a couple of classes to get the bachelor degree, but we do encourage that for them to do that. I totally and completely agree with you on that point.
It's a really good point. And then there could be competencies instead of taking a course, you could take because my father-in-law would have nailed those on mechanical stuff, on knot tying, on practical math. He would have nailed those because those were all required to be a successful lineman.
Okay, this segment went fast. I think we only have a minute or two. Any thoughts from folks who haven't gotten to share yet?
This is Sherilyn. What is it that the student who has a disability can do for education post 12th grade or post transition? And that does also include what programs are colleges offering that adapt for students with, in particular, intellectual and developmental disabilities.
See a lot of nods. Okay, it looks like
This is Natalia. I just wanted to really quickly add that the word meaningful work is a little bit nebulous, and I wish that were better defined because really all work should be meaningful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say state law uses the term gainful employment, and some partners have further, defined a living wage type of job. There's a concept of that there. For the purpose of the listening session, we made it broader to meaningful work, kind of intentionally open to interpretation because we were curious to hear broader thoughts from our partners and the general public, kind of opening it up a little broader, but gainful employment is technically what it says in state law.
Just in case you didn't capture that Padlet down, I'm going to put it back in chat for you. In case this was someone in this breakout room, I see a comment that says, how is meaningful defined under the first question? What students need to be ready to secure meaningful work? I think you could define it yourself. We would be interested in hearing how you would define it and then your answer based off of that.
The other thing I might note is for all of these, like if you feel like students need the same skills, both to pursue education beyond high school and to secure meaningful work, you're welcome to put it in both places. We realize there's likely going to be some overlap.
I was in a conference last week where a session was led by the Washington Roundtable, which is an organization of like the big businesses in Washington State. So Boeing, Starbucks, Microsoft, right? And they were talking about the 10-year projected job growth. And I thought it was really interesting because job opportunities or job openings over the next 10 years, 75% will require something above a high school diploma. It might just be a certificate or an associate's degree, but bachelor's or above. And honestly, like seeing data like that, I think is really important to show students and families because I think a lot of we push post-secondary options, but they don't understand why. And it was also interesting because the graph, sure, 25% of jobs only require a high school diploma, but there are more people in that category than there are going to be job openings. And then we get people coming in from the state, mostly in that category. So yes, while 25% of job openings don't require more than a high school diploma, there's more people than there are those jobs. And I felt like seeing that data just made it more real. And I feel like, again, we need to show that connection. Why are we pushing these things? Because this is the job market. And I think that is really important for families and students to understand.
I wanted to jump in on that, Prima. Awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. I actually put that same statistic in our former Padlet. I work with Washington Roundtable a lot. I went out to a rural high school last week and I presented that information alongside the Washington labor market to students and the entire 11th grade. And I feel like we have to get that information and those labor market forecasts directly into the hands of students and their families. And when we say high school, credential beyond high school diploma, it does not always mean college. We have to be better about our jargon and demystifying what a credential beyond a high school diploma can set you up for in terms of economic mobility. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, it was a good session.
I agree, and just want to add that I feel like we don't do a good job of helping students see on-ramps to different types of jobs, like the path to accessing a diploma only, high school diploma only job or a college diploma job, might include various access to internships or networking or all those things. And students in high school don't typically know about those things unless someone else in their life is sharing it. So there's a huge opportunity there.
And others who have chimed in, I'm wondering how you would relate that back to graduation requirements. For instance, our current graduation requirements are not perfectly aligned, but they're pretty well aligned with minimum college admissions standards. So I'm wondering, and that was intentional when graduation requirements were last updated maybe 15 years ago. So I'm wondering if you think that's something that would need to continue to happen and how you might want to comment on that in the Padlet in the time we have left or discuss your call.
Well, Alyssa, I wonder if it is part of the requirement for completing the high school and beyond that students receive that labor market forecast information as part of the process of completing their high school and beyond plan with the new School Links platform. I know that it's a feature that's supported by School Links, but it's not currently, I don't believe, listed as a requirement. Financial literacy is, and FAFSA and financial aid awareness is, but not labor market forecasts and credential demand.
I think OSPI still has a survey open about School Links right now. So Vicki, please put that in your survey response.
Okay, I think that was the issue. Not for sure. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Will someone give me a shout out so I can hear you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, so I put the Padlet in for the second group or the second time for us to chat. And so it is really what do we want students to be ready? So really trying to get an idea of what readiness means. And for every community, again, there's just different facets to readiness and what that means. So take a moment, reflect on what students need to be ready to pursue an education beyond high school, what students need to be ready to secure that meaningful work, what students need to be ready for the role and participation in their community at large, and what do they need to be ready to continue growing and learning throughout life. So feel free to take a moment and go through and put your thoughts down, and then I will, let's say about a minute, maybe two. I'll put two on here. I'll put a minute, and then we can come back in. It looks like we're going to come back about 12:45-ish. So we have a few minutes, and then of course discussion. So I'm going to minimize the screen. I'm not going to share my screen because I think that might have been one of the issues with sound last time. So I just want to make sure that
My name is Jennifer. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So in the chat I'd put earlier, I can't access the Padlet, so I have no idea what people are saying. And I can't put my own, so I'm just gonna put my responses in the chat, I guess. So I'm just letting you know it's not working.
So I will do, when I hit it in here, you can't open it up at all through your computer?
It just says I'm verifying you as a human.
Okay. You know what? I'm worried about sharing my screen only because
That's okay.
There was something weird about this.
That's okay. I just wanted to let you know not everyone can. I don't know if I'm the only one.
No, that's how many people in here cannot see raise your hand in the chat if you cannot access the Padlet. So I know we have one.
Might just be me. That's okay. I'll put my
Have you
feedback
tried
in the
with your
chat.
phone? Because I could put the QR code in here.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to
Okay.
waste people's time. It's
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you, though. Appreciate
All
it.
right. So what did we think coming back to the Padlet itself? So the first question is, what do students need to be ready to pursue an education beyond high school? We have some of the things like executive functioning, mental health, really the opportunity to work with themselves, and if they're struggling with their mental health, and having I guess the ability to have to get skills to help get better. I'm sorry, I'm saying it horrible. Apprenticeship and trade, knowledge and skills, confidence. Oh, that's a good one. Financial aid, self-management. There's a lot in here. So would anyone like to speak to what they think is their biggest takeaway regarding what students need to be ready for outside of high school?
So this is Sam. I would just say that students need to be aware that there are options for all of them after high school. And I speak to a lot of students who have been told there are no options for them, that there are no jobs, that there are no options for college because of who they are and their identities. And it makes it very hard for these students to consider applying to anything when they are told in very clear terms that there is no place for them in the world by their educators. And I hear this actually from a wide range of students. So students need to know that there are a lot of different ways to be in the world, and there are a lot of different ways to participate in community and in work and in education and in academia. And that there is a lot of
opportunity out there. I personally have a student who has had 6 different colleges reach out about them attending, and yet every single one of their high school teachers has told them that they have no potential to go to college and has denied them access to classes based on an assumption that they will not have, that they have no potential future.
Thank you for sharing that. I have that really hits home for me. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to share?
My name's Jennifer.
Yeah.
Samantha, I really appreciate you sharing that. As a high school teacher, that like hurts to hear that. So I appreciate that. I put my feedback in the chat, but I just wanted to offer, I work at a comprehensive high school in Bellevue. Most of our students go to pretty high performing, sometimes elite colleges. So I'm a bit drastically different demographic than maybe some other schools that we've talked about. And one of the biggest things I've noticed, especially because I teach seniors and only seniors, and I put it in the chat, is around letting kids kind of show up whenever they feel like, and not holding them accountable for being in person. And I just feel like if students are unable to attend for whatever reason, giving them more options. If comprehensive high school is not working for them, giving them more options so they can be successful. But for those kids that are expected to be here, I'd like to potentially see us go back to some more clear guidelines around that. I have students who have missed 60 classes and are still expected to figure out a way to graduate, and it's just not possible. So that's kind of my biggest concern.
So we're going to have to head back. We're going to probably be pulled back soon. And would anyone like to sum up what was said in this moment when we get back?
Hey everyone, did I the same folks? I didn't, huh? I got some new ones. I did kept a few ones. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and before I actually open up the palette, I am going to go ahead and add here the link to it. So that way, in the event that I don't capture your thoughts, feel free to just go ahead and add on. Okay. Great. So I'm going to be sharing my screen as well. And we can just, follow the same format. What students need to be ready to pursue education beyond high school. And then we'll move on to the next questions as we go. And feel free to just share your thoughts.
First, they need to know where their interests lie for their job, and then they need to know what education pathways stem from that. So do they need to go to trade school? Do they need to go to a four-year college? Do they need to do an apprenticeship?
Samantha, I'm going to add to that, which is a lot of kids that I work with don't even know what's out there in the world. I try to get kids into engineering school, and you can't see what engineers do because you don't see them out and about, right? They're behind closed walls and in factories. So I don't think a lot of kids can make meaningful decisions. I mean, I hear a lot of kids talk about wanting to be an influencer or an NBA basketball star. You see those people, yeah, you can succeed at that, but not many are going to do it. So I think there's a whole element of exposure that we have to talk about to even get to where kids can meaningfully think about a future.
I think some great points have been said, but I do think folks need to look at sometimes, we need to pay attention to the actual infrastructure at home. Sometimes families for generations, families don't have access and they don't know how to support their kiddos. I think that's a really a strong component to I guess lean into as we're talking about like setting them up for success. You know, a lot of kids, a lot of Black and brown students may be breaking generational curses. So that's one thing to point out. And I remember when I was working at a local nonprofit here in Tacoma, you know, a lot of my students at the time, they were really leaning more towards 2-year degrees and apprenticeships. So I had to shift my thinking as well as a practitioner inside of the school to support them, and ensure that you know, their measure of success may look different than others. So they might want to go into something right after high school rather than do a 4-year degree, or they might just want to do a 2-year degree or get a certificate to set them up for success after high school. So.
I appreciate that sharing. I'll add curiosity for or some passion for lifelong learning.
Peggy, why don't you go?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a reference to, you know, they need to be able to procure meaningful jobs. I'm a little bit concerned about that because, quite frankly, even with kids that go through college and, you know, go into professional careers, their first job they get may not be that meaningful. You know, typically you start out on the lowest rung of wherever you are, and you may have to work at jobs that you don't even want to do just to be able to, you know, feed yourself until you do get what you're looking for. So, how do you build resilience among kids for toughing it through the, for lack of a better term, non-meaningful jobs? You know, the stuff that sometimes you just have to do in order to function. I know with our oldest son, you know, when he walked out of college, he expected that he would just be able to walk into a job because, you know, he got this education and that was what it was for. And it was a severe disappointment. And while he has made his way up the ladder, it was a long struggle. He's finally getting to a place, and this is several years post college. So, how do you prepare students for that reality?
And I think this also, just to kind of add on to this, before we go to you, John, I think this is also relates to how do we make sure students fail, like they learn how to fail. And that was on our previous group. Thank you. John, go ahead.
I'd like to build on what Kim and Levon talked about. Does anybody have an idea of how, I mean, we cannot influence significantly the family dynamics or the generational curses, as Levon mentioned. What I'd like to have discussed is what can we in the school do to expose them, to get them out and help them decide what is they might be interested in, because we cannot offer all sorts of courses showing them the broad spectrum that's available for employment. So somebody chime in and give me some ideas.
I'll jump in. So I'm sure that Leon is familiar with this. Levon is the CBOs that work in the schools. So where I work at Garfield, we have 2 or 3 community-based organizations, and they do everything that we just talked about. One of which has a 100% success rate of getting Black kids into college, many 4-year colleges, a couple 2 years. Tours, summer programs, all that stuff. So the CBOs are the secret answer, I believe.
I love that. And I also think that in CTE courses, there's a new requirement that there has to be a classroom to career external activity. And I believe with that being a requirement in the curriculum, it has to be done. And you have to do it with kids. And I believe that it really helps expose kids to more, especially those who only feel like they understand that it's college or nothing.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming back together. Let's return our focus now to the conversation you just had in small groups around what it means to be ready. in kind of diving into each of these areas as well. So would love to open it up for a couple of minutes here to see if folks had any insights they'd like to share from their small group discussion.
I'll just share from our group that what I think I heard was we need to have equal opportunity for kids going to the trades and kids going to the apprenticeships or to colleges. So, and also have some reciprocity from both those processes. So in a case they want to change their career path in the future, that they have something to back them up. Like for saying, if you're going to be a lineman, that lineman comes with a bachelor's degree in something, that when they want to go into something else, they have a bachelor's degree to go into the education part. So I think that's what I heard.
Yeah,
Right.
I was in Nick's group. He nailed it on the head. The other thing we talked about was this stigma that it still is out there. To be successful after high school, you have to go to a 2 or 4 year college. And that is, yes, that's one option, but there's so many more options. And somehow we could tell kids a lot of options available. Definitely post-secondary education of some kind, but it maybe you become a paramedic or a fisherman or a carpenter or a lineman or whatever it is. You don't necessarily have to always go the college track. And I'm a part-time instructor at WSU, so anyhow, I could ramble on. Sorry.
I would agree with that in our group too. I don't think we were together in the same group. There was a lot of conversation about post-secondary alternative options. And I didn't really say this out loud in the other group, but mainstream university is almost becoming cost inhibited for most families and most students, and their employers want to be able to train their employees. They want them coming front loaded with specific skills, how to collaborate, willingness to learn, willingness to work hard, but they are more looking at portfolio based information than they are necessarily that 4 year in-hand degree, just because it's taking so long to get the workforce out that long. And then there's even a bit of an entitlement situation going on when they come out of a 4 year degree, that they're too good to do this work or too good to do that work. And so just some conversation.
Hi there. My name is Jennifer, and I shared in my last group, and I appreciate what everyone's been saying about trades. My school has a really amazing CTE department, auto shop, and like a nursing program in another high school. Like we have really great supports. I come from a different perspective. I work in Bellevue at Bellevue High School, and most of our students I shared earlier go to really sort of elite colleges, or most of them do go on to 4 year colleges. And we sort of, I want us to maybe just, or encourage us to think about, while trade schools are really important, I also think being able to read, write, and think critically. I mean, this is what I tell my students. I teach senior English. You're not easily manipulated. And if you aren't able to read and write and think critically, you're also hesitant to question or to speak up. And I hope that the rigorous sort of academic standards remain. I also think collaboration is really important. And all of these things are for any job that you do, whether it's academic, whether it's more of a trade, whether it's going into tech or anything. And one of the things I would really like to see change, and I'll just keep saying it until someone listens, I put it in the chat, is being on time to things, and respecting the work, and respecting your colleagues, respecting your peers, and holding students accountable is really important. And I put in the chat, I think that our laws right now around absences, and they're definitely doing a disservice to students. I have so many students who, especially seniors, who think coming to school is optional, and they're definitely losing out on learning. and and I'm expected to sort of figure out how to graduate them, how to pass them. And it's doing an absolute disservice to them and to our wider community and society by not holding them accountable for something as simple as being on time or at least showing up at all. So that's just my perspective. And I really appreciate all of you listening. Thank you so much.
Okay, we probably have time for one more quick comment before we move to our closing activity. So, Michelle, I see your hand.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. I just wanted to say thank you for those comments, and I wanted to just take it a little bit further and zoom out just a little bit. And I agree that we need writing, math, reading skills, and we need to be accountable to our community. And I think the best way we can do that is to just instill this belief in all our students, like believe in them. And I think when that happens, they believe in what they can do, and they can find their purpose. And when they find purpose and meaning in life, that can drive their learning, pushing forward. But I think that we need to start from that position, as opposed to just starting directly with academics or things like being on time.
All right, thank you all for sharing those thoughts. We have one more activity here. It looks like we got about 6 minutes remaining and want to respect your time. So would love to move to our final activity around ideal qualities. This one's on Menti. So if you're able to either access using the link or again, the QR code, I'll launch this in one moment here. And we're asking, what words or qualities do you hope will describe graduation requirements in the future? So completing the sentence, ideally, graduation requirements would be. Okay, it should be launched now and you should be able to enter your words there. And if you do have any trouble accessing it, yes, please do put them in the chat too. That works as well.
I'm so sorry. Can you remind us what words we're putting in? Like, what are they supposed to be describing?
The qualities that you hope will describe graduation requirements in the future. So with this opportunity to redesign them, what do you hope they would be like in the future? And just, I see some topics coming in, and those are good too, but the focus here is more qualities. So descriptive words in terms of some examples that are coming in, and I'll show on screen here is like flexible, rigorous, those type of adjectives of what qualities would you want the grad requirements to represent?
know most people in the businesses, when they have acronyms, everybody knows what they're talking about. But is that FAFSA for federal aid, or is it, what is that FAFSA?
Oh, yes, that's the federal application for it's for the financial aid for higher education. And the WASPA is the state version of that too.
Thank you.
I'm showing on screen the results coming in. And when looking at one of these word clouds, the most common words are shown in a larger font, so you can see what the most popular responses have been. So we've got flexible, reasonable, rigorous, applicable, accessible, inclusive, relevant, lots of other great qualities listed here. Thank you all for taking the time to share your thoughts. We're gonna round out here and just wanted to thank you again for taking the time today to share. And as we mentioned at the beginning, this is the beginning of a multi-year initiative where we're at the stage of setting the vision before moving into policy work. And so all the thoughts that you've shared today is going to help inform setting the vision as the board undertakes this work of recommending changes to graduation requirements. So really appreciate you taking the time to share. And I'll put on screen one final slide that just has contact information, and afterwards you will receive a recording of today's event and our slide deck as well. So please do stay in touch with us. Let us know if you have any feedback, because we're always customizing how we do our engagement sessions as well. So would love your thoughts and hope that you'll join us in future sessions as well. So thank you very much.